Welcome, everybody, to another episode of All Things Considered Franchising, powered by Scott Milas FranchiseCoach.com. All Things Considered Franchising is a podcast devoted to the franchising space, talking and speaking with people within the franchise industry, CEOs, franchisees, also people who are interested in entrepreneurship and really kind of getting into business. Scott Milas FranchiseCoach.com is an consulting organization devoted to helping people research and explore business ownership, building that roadmap, helping in the journey, answering questions, research, education on franchising. The services that we provide are absolutely at no cost to our clients. We represent over 500 brands. Today's guest, I got to tell you, it's a great story. And if you haven't heard about this brand, I think you've probably been sleeping way too much. You need to get out a little bit more. And this brand is really taking off. It's got a great story. And the interesting story, at least the first part about our guest, is that they started out in the organization in the marketing department and is now Chief Executive Officer, CEO. You talk about climbing the corporate ladder. Please welcome Betsy Hamm to the show. Betsy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great. You and I got a chance to chat for a few minutes after your presentation over at the IFA in Vegas, the International Franchise Association. And for those listeners that are not familiar with the IFA, it's the kind of the mother of all organizations within the franchising industry, working on legal issues, just topics of franchising, franchisor relationships, franchisee-franchisor relationships. And we talked about a model with your brand, Duck Donuts. And like I said, if you don't know who Duck Donuts are and haven't had their donuts, well, you're really missing out. My daughter, one of my daughters, my oldest daughter up in the Quincy, Massachusetts area, every time she says, I got to have one of these Duck Donuts. I got to have one of these Duck Donuts.
Nice.
But anyway, let's first start off about your history in the franchising industry. You come out of the resorts, entertainment industry, and then you kind of got into franchising. How did that materialize? I mean, what brought you or attracted you to franchising, especially at that point when you got into it, an emerging brand? I mean, not even a blip on the radar, right? I mean,
yeah. How did that happen?
Right.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I had spent most my entire career up until that point at hospitality and tourism with Hershey Park and resorts and restaurants. So when I had heard about this opportunity at Duck Donuts, I didn't even know what Duck Donuts was. I had never been to one. At that time, it was really, if you weren't vacationing in the Outer Banks, you probably haven't been to one. But I was intrigued by the brand because I had some friends who vacationed in the Outer Banks. And when I mentioned Duck Donuts to them, they were like, oh my gosh, you have to take this interview. So met with the founder and the CEO at the time and learned about this brand that people who knew it loved it. And they wanted to take this and make it a national household name. So as a marketer, that's like a dream come true, right? To have this opportunity to take a brand that is slightly established, but really needs to grow up and become more sophisticated and make it a national household name. So that's really what attracted me. I, to be completely honest, had no idea the complexities of franchising. So that was completely new to me. And when I first started here, we had 20 shops open. So, probably 10, 15 franchisees at the time. So it was a quick lesson learned on just how franchising works and what our role as the franchisor was. And as you said, I mean, we were a small brand, we were emerging. I was the 12th employee hired. So a lot of things weren't figured out yet. So really had this opportunity to help grow and build not just the brand from a marketing perspective, but the company, identifying what's our mission and vision and how many shops are we going to open. So just as my role evolved, I just kind of kept taking on more and getting involved with operations and development. So yeah, never my intention. If somebody would have asked me 7 or 8 years ago, hey, I think you're going to be the CEO of an international donut franchise, I'd be like, they don't ever let marketing people in charge. I have no franchising experience, but at the end of the day, it's working. It's been great. So
you guys are skyrocketing, and it's really interesting because, in some respect, you have put yourself in the same pair of shoes as a lot of the potential franchisees that are walking through your door that are contemplating getting out of corporate America, or maybe have been
Sure.
displaced
Yeah.
from corporate America, now deciding whether they want to continue in that journey working for someone else, or start building their own legacy, or start getting involved in their own business. So when you look at those shoes, when you look at your first 24 months, 36 months, and coming out of the corporate side, and Hershey is a well-known resort entertainment company. I think it's been, voted or recognized as one of the best places to work. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
just got a
Yeah.
lot of awards. But when you made that transition, and maybe you can relate this to people, our audience, who are thinking about investing in a franchise, what are some of the things that you found that were different, and that just maybe were stereotyped, that you may have thought about franchising or heard about franchising, that actually were not really relative or true? I mean, what was that transition like?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Hershey's this really huge corporation with a ton of structure and layers and people and process. And, coming into a franchise organization where, again, growing and not completely established, I love it. I thrive in that kind of environment where everything isn't all cookie cuttered, perfectly figured out. And you have to do exactly, what was already done in the past. We have this opportunity to grow and do things differently. And I think that's kind of similar to franchisees, right? Like, we have this tried and true business model. We know people love our donuts. So we can give our franchisees a business opportunity to have that entrepreneurial spirit and be their own small business owner, but they get to rely on the support and the structure of our franchise system and other franchisees.
So you came out of a corporate environment where vision was kind of your journey. I mean, you had come up with a lot of visionary ideas
Sure.
being in corporate. When you come into, and then you go into the franchising space, and you're developing more of what I call uh, processes. So
Mhm.
process
Yep.
entrepreneur. So how is that switch for you? And then trying to relay that message to the franchisees that, you know, you can rely on us for the processes. We just need you to delegate those processes. What were some of the things that really kind of stood out with you? I mean, I'm sure there had to be pushback. There always is. So how
Right.
did you deal with all that?
Yeah, and I think because of when I started, we were figuring out so much still, right? Like the processes and the operations manual and, how we're going to operate, that it's not a different experience every location you go to, because it started to happen. The shops were looking a little different because the franchisees were getting creative with their decor because we weren't providing a lot of decor, or maybe they were testing their own seasonal promotions
Right.
flavors because, we weren't pushing out seasonal promotions or seasonal flavors. So we quickly realized, like, okay, we have to really take the reins of this and make sure that we're providing that overarching strategy, essentially, of the business, and making sure that you're having that same experience, whether you're in Huntington Beach, California, or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But where the franchisees come in and they really get to make that impact is, on a local level. So our most successful franchisees are the ones that are engaged and innovative and doing what they can to drive traffic. So we'll give you all the tools and resources to succeed, but we can't execute, right? We can't execute on a local level. We'll promote the brand on a national level, but to really drive sales, you have to be the
Right.
salesperson on a local level, as the franchisee. And time again, that's what we see, with our top performing shops versus the low performing shops. The ones who are taking that ownership and that accountability and moving forward and doing what they can do to drive, catering and special events and being involved with PTAs and sports teams and schools. They get to have that creativity and that flexibility, and ultimately they're responsible for their success or for their failure. So I think it's interesting to have that opportunity as a franchisee, that you really are in control, versus, a lot of times if you work at a really big corporate organization, you don't feel like you can have that impact. And
Right.
I think back to, my role at Hershey, I got to be involved in so many amazing projects and got to be part of so many cool things. But the impact I felt like I could make in my roles was like this big compared to here. I tell our team, everybody has the ability to impact this brand
Right.
and the growth. No, I don't care if you've been here for 6 months and you're a coordinator level, or you're, at the VP level and you've been working in the franchise industry for 20 years. Anyone can have an idea, and we're so small still and nimble that we're able to act on ideas from our team or from our franchisees. I mean, that's
Exactly.
some of the best ideas come from our franchisees, whether it's, how to handle something from an operations perspective, new flavors, whatever it is. We're getting great feedback from our franchisees that's helping our strengthen our brand and grow.
Right. We're talking with Betsy Hamm, but just to take another second, we're talking with Betsy Hamm, Chief Executive Officer over at Duck Donuts. Just one of those fast-moving brands that's really making an impact in the food industry across the U.S. And one of the things, and to your point, one of the things that I like to talk about my clients is really talking about the comfort margin being with a brand that's in that embryonic stage, taking off. Because I've always said to people that, look, if you get into a brand that has 1,000 units, 2,000 units, you're a franchisee. I mean, the
True.
front door or the back door isn't necessarily open. I said, but when you get involved with a brand like Duck Donuts and these emerging brands, 50, 100, 150 units, and to me, they're still growing. That
Yep.
back door to people like yourself within the organization, for franchisees to kind of bend someone's ear about ideas is there. I mean, is that
Absolutely.
correct? I mean,
Oh my gosh,
it's
you're so right. Yeah, because we're not in the infancy stage of the brand and establishing it, but like, I don't know, maybe we're in high school. Like,
right,
we're not like post college, we're not retirement age, we're at that. We got a lot figured out, but we are so open, and we have about 30 employees from a headquarters standpoint, and franchisees have no issues picking up the phone, calling me, calling the VP of ops, whoever, to say, hey, this is an issue, or hey, I have an idea. And that's great. Like, again, that's how we're going to grow, is when we have more brains and different perspectives, and of course people who are living and breathing the operation every day, providing feedback, suggestions, recommendations. It makes us stronger.
right. One last question before we get on to the brand about yourself. So you started out in the marketing department. You started to be an impact within the brand, obviously. Things were going along. I guess I'm just trying to vision how the CE role, that tap on the back, or was it a surprise? I mean, I'm sure the CEO position wasn't posted on a bulletin board somewhere,
No.
so did it catch you off guard? I mean, is it something that was in the back of your mind? Because we talk about people that want to start a business and then franchise it, or people that want to get into the franchising industry, not necessarily own a franchise, but be part of a franchisor system. So your story really shows that there's potential growth. And
Absolutely.
if you capture what franchising is all about. So your story, I mean, how did this, I mean, it's just interesting. I mean,
Yeah, it is. It is.
like you said in the beginning, there aren't too many marketing people that have
Right.
come out and all of a sudden been
I
CEOs. It's
know.
kind of like, the accounting person getting in charge of sales. I mean, it just never
Hey,
happens.
I
I mean,
think more marketing people should be CEOs. I think
yes, they
that,
should.
it's, marketing is all about driving the brand and growth. And
Right.
that's what a CEO is driving the brand and growth, and making sure I have the smartest team around me to support that, to make sure it happens. So when I was in marketing, after about a year and a half of building up the team, the CEO and founder, Russ, had said to me, I think you should, I want to promote you. And at the time, honestly, we didn't even have titles. So I said, well, what are you going to promote me to? I don't even have a title. He's like, I'm going to make you COO. So, over operations. And I thought, wow, they definitely don't let marketing people over operations. This is going to be fun. But it worked out. Again, we worked so closely together. My entire career, even in Hershey, we worked so closely with the operations team. I get how they think. I get what's important. So I could just kind of have that bridge, and had the operations experts on the team to be able to make sure things were happening. So was in that role for, I guess probably about 2 years. And then Russ had always been very upfront with me that he was going to take this brand and this company as far as he could. And then he was going to have to bring in other expertise. He is the true definition of an entrepreneur, starting and having the ideas and being innovative, and sort of near retirement age too. So it was in January of 2020. He said to me, it's time. This is the year I'm going to start looking, for capital or private equity partner. And I was like, no, give me one more year. And he's, had his mind made up. So of course, we all know what happened in March. It was COVID. I thought we would take a little hiatus, but we didn't. He kept moving forward. And that was when I think it kind of hit me, because during COVID, with just the chaos that everybody was dealing with, I really stepped up and sort of took the driver's seat, and Russ was like, I think this is a great opportunity for you to, prove yourself, continue to build the relationship with the franchisees and the credibility with the franchisees and the team. I'm here if you need me. I think you can take this and run. So I was like, okay. So I knew COVID was going to last so long.
Right.
But we, as everyone else, learned so much during that time period. So as we're going through the process, interviewing the private equity groups, which I was a part of those conversations, it kind of dawned on me, like, I don't want somebody to come in and take over. Like, we're in such a good path. We were in such a good spot as a company. And I had been influencing so much of that the thought of somebody coming in and potentially derailing, changing, shifting, I was like, whoa, wait, actually, I think I want to be in charge. Like, I want to continue to drive this forward. We've done so much, in the last 2 years, essentially. So that's when I was like, yeah, no, I want to do this. I want to make this happen. And of course I had Russ's complete support. He's always been my biggest cheerleader, which I greatly appreciate. So then when he told New Spring, who is our private equity group, that I remember vividly at dinner, they had said, oh, Russ, we like to back up companies that are founder led, and we back you up, like, right. We don't want to bring anybody in. This is how we operate. And Russ is like, oh, I'm not sticking around. He's like, I would like, as part of this opportunity, that, I'm going to step out. And they're like, oh, what are we going to do? We have to find a CEO. And he's like, no, she can do it. And I could see them like all kind of look at me like,
yeah,
really?
I can picture that picture. I'm visualizing that the dinner
yeah.
table,
And I'm like
round
sitting there like,
table.
shoot, did I really say that out loud that I can do it? Like, is it too late? So, of course, there was lots of conversations after that, and sharing with New Spring what I had done up to that point, and my story, interviewing essentially for the job. But I think they quickly saw that I had the potential to be able to continue down the path we had already started, and take it to the next level. Elevate was the word that I think I used a lot as we just continue to grow. So yeah, I mean, not the normal
Great story.
path, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, sometimes surprises work out really
Right.
great. And I mean, and it's coming in from a different approach. We're talking to Betsy Hamm, Chief Executive Officer of Duck Donuts, a national chain right now, growing like weeds, I guess is the way to say it. So let's focus in on a little bit about the brand, and then we'll talk about some franchising. But, franchisors have, and it's something I've always questioned as a consultant and being in the industry for as long as I have. People say the perfect franchisee for Duck Donuts, or the perfect franchisee for this person. I'm not a believer in there's such thing as a perfect franchisee, because perfection is far and few between. Ideal may be the right word, and that's what I like to use. So when we look at the word ideal and the person who considers or should consider, or someone like myself, a consultant, to introduce Duck Donuts is, what am I looking for? I mean, what are some of the attributes? I mean, obviously there's the known financials and things like that,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
let's talk about character, personality. What are we looking for? What if somebody's listening, thinking about, hey, this sounds really interesting, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, our franchisees are very diverse, right? So we have some franchisees who maybe they were a teacher or an accountant or worked in marketing in a big organization. So from a prior career, I would say it's all over the place, but I think the common denominator of our successful franchisees is someone who can come in and be able to be independent, right? With those tools and resources and the support, who's very driven, who's resourceful, who's a great problem solver. And I think the piece that a lot of people forget, no matter which franchise you get into, is you're going to have a bunch of employees, right? So you have to be good with people, and be able to manage a team. And in our role, you're managing a lot of 16, 17-year-old kids, which is a whole new opportunity for people.
Right.
So, somebody who can come in and build a team and make them feel supported. And that's really the biggest thing. And, we talk about the circle of success at Duck Donuts. And of course, we have this great image that's a donut, of course, is a circle. So as the franchisor, we need to be very strong, And then we, as our job is to support the franchisees, but the franchisees' job is to support their team, who then is delivering to the customer. And if the customers are happy, they're going to keep coming back. So, that's our circle, is the franchisees who can focus on their team and, of course, the customer, to ensure that we're delivering that superior product with an exceptional customer experience. So we can teach you how to make donuts. That's maybe almost the easiest part of the job.
Right.
But the franchisees who can come in and manage and build a team, as well as build their sales, and through marketing programs and anything from a local perspective. I mean, that's what we're looking for, is the franchisees who can come in and have that aptitude to do that.
So there is a sales aptitude to this.
Absolutely.
And again, those are one of the questions that I like to take a deep dive in with my clients, because people don't realize that, and when we talk about sales aptitude, we're not talking about, and I'm really dating myself here, we're not talking about the Willy Lomans where you're carrying your briefcase around and you're floor hopping or knocking on doors or going through the white pages or yellow pages or your index cards, dialing for dollars. What we're talking about is the sales aptitude, the ability to go out and network, whether it's a chamber, a BNI group, getting to know the local car dealership, the sales manager, or the vice president of finance. So that's what we're talking about as far as sales
relationships.
Aptitude. It's relationship selling. Yep. Good.
And the relationships are huge in general, because of course they have to have a relationship with us and our team. They have to have a relationship with their own team members, customers, potential customers. So being able to have strong relationships and build them and be a great communicator, I mean, those are like the really big key things that we can give you some tools to do that, but we can't teach people how to, build relationships. That's really something that they have to have that skill set when they come to us.
Your industry that you're in is a competitive industry, but it's a unique competitive industry because in that quote donut space, and again, I'm just going to use that term for a second here, you really have maybe three players. I mean, I won't name, I might mention them because we all know who they are, but that differentiator for Duck Donuts, obviously there's that local, that locally owned, that, franchise business. But what are some of the other differentiators that separate you from those larger organizations that really, maybe have a bigger place on the map, but really don't, and there's nothing wrong with those businesses. I'm not here to throw them under.
They all have their
but
place,
what's exactly? So what is your place and differentiator if someone's considering to get into this space? Because a lot of people say, well, there are a lot of those. I don't know if but I'm a firm believer that, there's a reason why there's a lot of burgers, chicken, pizza, and everything, is because it pleases the masses. And let's face it,
absolutely,
a lot of people eat donuts.
Yeah.
So what is the differentiator for Duck Donuts?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, well, first, donuts, because we have some competitors who don't even keep donut in their name anymore. They focus more on beverage, which is great. 85% of our sales are donuts. I would love to drive our coffee sales, or, we have milkshakes and ice cream, but it's still a very small piece of our business. And then the biggest differentiator is the fact that we are customizable and we're fresh. So when you walk into a Duck Donuts, you don't see any donuts sitting there. You have to walk up to the cash register and order your donuts, and you get to choose your coatings and toppings and drizzles. And then once you order them is when we actually make them. So then you also get to see the entire process in front of you. And then we hand you a box of warm donuts when you walk out the door. So, having that warm, on demand, fresh, I got to pick out what I have in my donut. We're never really out of any donuts. That's really what our biggest differentiator is versus the other donut concepts.
So we're talking with Betsy Hamm, Chief Executive Officer of Duck Donuts. I'm Scotty Milas, podcast host for All Things Considered Franchising. Betsy, what's the vision like for Duck? I mean, where do you see this going? I mean, franchising, a friend of mine, you may know her, Emily Anderson. She's just a great developer. She looks at franchising that people really have to get outside the box. There's a lot more to franchising than the golden arches and the $5 foot long. So when you look at where is Duck Donut going? What's your vision? What are you seeing down the road?
Yeah, so we're obviously focused on growth, and growth is really twofold. So obviously we want to open up additional locations. We have about 118 locations in the United States. We have a few international, Canada, Egypt, Cairo, we just opened, Saudi Arabia, and we have a couple other countries opening this year. So we want to continue to extend that footprint. And our goal is to sprinkle happiness around the globe, which is great. But the other piece of that growth is we need to continue to focus on our existing shops and making them more successful, which of course is driving sales, making them more profitable. So our efforts is really around how are we driving transactions? How are we driving frequency? I would love to see our frequency numbers increase, and just trying to kind of crack that to figure out what that entails has really been a focus. So while we're focused on growth, it's having Duck Donuts on in every market, essentially. I don't think we're a brand that will have a Duck Donuts on every street corner. Like, we're not on the level of, like, say, a Starbucks. You can go a half a mile and there's another Starbucks, and that model works for them. But we are a special treat. We are something that people go to for events or for holidays, or just for a reward. So I think as we grow, we'll be very strategic about that and not oversaturate markets, and keep that distance that we are able to sustain growth with a few additional locations. But, we're probably not going to hit the 10,000 mark location anytime in the future.
So Duck Donuts is really more of a destination. Hey,
Yeah.
I want to go to Duck Donuts today.
Yep,
It's not
exactly.
like you're driving by some of the other places, go, oh, let me stop in there. It's
Right.
People say, this is where we're going today. It's that treat. It's that
Yes.
want. I want to go to Duck Donuts today.
Yes.
That need versus want. Great. Just switching real gears real quickly. And you were at IFA, and there's a lot of whispers about what's going on in the industry, the joint employer thing that's going on in California and everything. But if there's somebody's listening today and they're really contemplating whether to pick up the phone and start learning about franchise opportunities and owning a franchise versus doing it themselves, talk to the audience and the listeners the advantages that you see, not only with the Duck Donuts, but the franchising industry itself. I mean, can you share some words of wisdom?
Absolutely. I mean, the franchising industry is so huge, and I love going to IFA to be reminded of the impact that our industry has across the globe. It's just amazing. And I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but just some of the numbers that they throw out with the number of, even McDonald's, when the McDonald's CEO was talking about the number of employees that are part of McDonald's, and you think about how many people McDonald's touches every day. It's just amazing. And I think from a customer perspective, I think it's such a huge part of people's lives that they don't even realize or take for granted. That consistency piece, that I know that if I go somewhere to a new market, I'm traveling, I can look for that consistent brand, say a McDonald's or a Duck Donuts, that I know, and I know I want to go there because it's the consistent experience. So I think that's so important from a customer standpoint that we take for granted. And then again, it goes back to that small business opportunity. The number of people who've been able to control their own wealth and their own growth of their wealth is huge within the franchise industry. So again, it goes back to being part of a larger system where you're taking out a lot of that risk versus opening your own donut shop down the street. It's just a lot safer. And being able to give people that opportunity, I remind our team of this all the time, is people invest a ton of money into our brand or other franchise brands. And we get to help support them live their dreams of, being able to be that small business owner and control their destiny of their wealth. So I appreciate IFA's attention and work on all this from a government standpoint. It's messy and it's, kind of frightening, but hopefully continuing to have the franchisees. I loved how they talked about that, sending the franchisees to different meetings, because you're hearing straight from the people who are impacted by this. And I think that's really huge. So I hope we can continue to head down the right path of making sure franchising is continuing to grow and succeed as it's set up now.
Wow. Well, this has been great, Betsy. I mean, anything else you'd like to share about Duck Donuts? Anything I might have missed asking? Unique brand, very good validation, strong validation, definitely something to, add to the list of considerations. It's not as complicated as some of the other food concepts,
Yes,
but it is still the food business. I mean, it's, I tell people that it's not hard work, it's just long work.
True.
That's
Very
typically what I
true.
tell
Yep.
people. But anything else you want to share? Anything about franchising? Anything you may want to add to our audience?
I mean, I feel like we covered all of it, but you're right. We can teach you how to make a donut. It's really how to run a business, and if that's something that's of interest, we're obviously continuing to grow and looking to expand across the U.S. So feel free to check us out at duckdonuts.com.
Okay, great. Well, everybody, we've been talking to Betsy Hamm, Chief Executive Officer at Duck Donuts. An amazing story. It's just I guess it's what entrepreneurship and America is all about. I mean,
Right.
it's just a great story. This has been All Things Considered Franchising, powered by Scotty Milas, ScottMilasFranchiseCoach.com. It's been great having you, Betsy, and we
Thank
hope
you.
to get you back maybe in another 6 months, 12 months, so you can
Absolutely.
let
Yeah,
us
it was
know where
nice
we
chatting with
are.
you. Yep,
All right.
absolutely.
All right, everybody. Until next time, this is Scotty Milas saying, see you later.